Hello everyone, welcome back. We still have yet to receive our full house and scare zone reveal for Halloween Horror Nights 31. So instead, I am here today to give my top 5 tips for attending Halloween Horror Nights 31 at Universal Orlando. So it's officially August. We are almost to the Halloween season, and I know a lot of you out there are planning your trips, trying to figure out how to approach this whole Horror Nights monster, and that is why I'm making this video, to help you plan your trips. So if this is the first video you're seeing of mine, hi, I'm Liz. I'm a huge Halloween Horror Nights fan. I've been attending since 2001. I have this YouTube channel where I post weekly vlogs, haunt content during haunt season, and other travel videos the rest of the year, but I also run the HHN Rumors Twitter account and website, although I'm mainly using the Twitter account and this channel to spread the Horror Nights news and rumors throughout the season. So if you aren't already following me, make sure to follow me on Twitter, on my personal account and the HHN Rumors Twitter account, and subscribe for more Halloween Horror Nights news. So without further ado, let's get to these tips. I have made videos like this in the past, but this event is ever evolving, ever changing. Some of my tips are the exact same. They will always remain the same, but some things are changing. So let's get into it. Tip number 1, find the ticket or pass that is right for you and your vacation. So these days there are a ton of different Halloween Horror Nights tickets to choose from. There are single night tickets, there are multiple night tickets. It really depends on your vacation what will work best for you. On top of single night or multi-night tickets, there's also different advantages that you can add to your ticket, including stay and scream, scream early, scare actor dining. There are a lot of options out there, so make sure to check the Universal website, read through all the options available to you, and decide what works best for your plans. These tickets are getting more and more complicated as the years go on, so I highly recommend doing your research and deciding what tickets you're planning to buy before you arrive at the park. If you arrive to the park and buy tickets in person, it's going to be very overwhelming and it's going to be more expensive. They do give a slight discount for ordering your tickets ahead of time. For single night tickets and single night express tickets, the price varies depending on what date you're going. So definitely plan ahead, decide when you want to go, and check out the price options for those dates. Obviously, Saturday nights are going to be the most expensive, with Wednesday, Thursday, or Sunday nights being the most affordable, but these prices do vary even from September to October. So September dates are going to be more affordable. October dates are going to be more expensive the closer you get to Halloween, because those are the busiest times to visit Halloween Horror Nights. Just because the September dates or the Wednesday nights are the cheapest option, do not expect those nights to be quiet nights at Halloween Horror Nights. There are no quiet nights at Halloween Horror Nights anymore, not in 2022. Every single night is going to be busy, and in fact, sometimes the Wednesdays end up even busier than the weekend dates because they're the most affordable and everyone with passes are able to go to those nights. So you're gonna hear me say this multiple times throughout this video, but I'm trying to prep you for the reality of attending Halloween Horror Nights. There are going to be crowds. It's going to be very busy no matter what night you choose, but you can save money if you go earlier in the run. If you do order your tickets online before you arrive to the park, you'll have a couple different options on how to receive those tickets. You'll be able to either print them at home, digital copy, or will call. I typically do will call because I like having the paper pass and I get express, so I want that paper pass to put in a lanyard and be able to just flash when I go into a house rather than having it on my phone. But that's up to you. If you do will call, you don't necessarily have to get them at the gates. If you're staying at one of the Universal resorts, there are will call kiosks in your resort. Highly recommend picking up your ticket there rather than waiting to get to the gates. But if you're at the theme park during the day, you can access the will call kiosks at any time. It doesn't have to be during Halloween Horror Nights to pick up those tickets. If you arrive for your vacation at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, you can go pick up your tickets and already have them and not have to worry about the crowds at the gate. If you wait until it's time for Halloween Horror Nights, the will call kiosks, guest services, the ticket booths, all of them are going to be very busy because a lot of people do wait until the moment of to purchase tickets. So just go in knowing that. Also, if you choose to buy express for your night of Halloween Horror Nights, I believe it's the same option. You either have a digital copy or will call copy, but if you prefer to have it on your phone, I highly recommend taking a screenshot of it rather than having to worry about Wi-Fi to pull it up every single time. Just go ahead and have your screenshot of your barcode and have it ready to scan. And if you aren't aware with Express, there is no such thing as unlimited Express. Your Express Pass gets you 1 visit to each house per night, as well as 1 trip through any ride in the park that's open. If the Mummy's open, you can use your Horror Nights Express to ride the Mummy with Express, but you only get 1 trip through. It's not unlimited. If you're deciding to do a multi-night ticket instead of a single night ticket, I already discussed those options in my previous video, so you can go check that out here, but there are multiple options with different packages and different price points for you to choose from. Moving on to number 2, plan to arrive early or stay late. Now, if you're a trooper and you could do both, excellent. But the event is long. These days it's typically open from about 6:30 until 2 a.m. and that's a very long night with a lot of walking, especially if you did anything else during the day. So I'm not expecting you to do all of that, but at modern Halloween Horror Nights, the crowds are wild. If you aren't splurging for Express, and the best way to see the lowest wait times is either arrive early or stay late. So if arriving early is more your speed, then you have the option of doing Universal's Stay and Scream. In order to attend Stay and Scream, you need either a Universal annual pass, a Universal Studios day ticket, or a Scream early ticket. For Stay and Scream, you must be inside the Universal Studios gates by 5 p.m. So you can use one of those 3 passes to be inside Universal Studios by 5 p.m. So if you're already in the park, if you've been there all day, you're set. Just do whatever you want to do until 5 p.m. and at that point, the park will close for regular operations and you will be directed to one of the Stay and Scream locations. If you're like me and you're an annual pass holder, at like 4:55 p.m. you scan in and you go straight to Stay and Scream. If you have a Scream early pass, you'll have access to the park at 3 p.m. and you can arrive anytime in that 3 to 5 p.m. range to attend Stay and Scream. So traditionally we have 2 main Stay and Scream locations. Those would be Simpsons and New York/Finnegan's. Sometimes there have been additional Stay and Scream locations. As of filming this, I would bank on Simpsons and Finnegan's being the 2 main Stay and Scream locations. But at 5 p.m. you will choose one of those 2 locations and you'll be directed into a holding area. Once you get there, they will scan your Halloween Horror Nights ticket. So you have to already have your ticket in hand and they will let you into that area where you will wait anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes for the park to transition from daytime operations into Halloween Horror Nights. Now, depending on when you get to that area and what is open for that particular year, you will have limited food and drink options. I have never done the Simpsons Stay and Scream. In times of lower crowds, you were able to get into Moe's and actually purchase drinks or get a Duff beer. But I also saw the crowds from across the way last year, and at certain points I feel like the crowds were too large for you to be able to get to those areas. So if you've done the Simpsons Stay and Scream, leave me a comment down below and let me know what the food and drink situation was, because I honestly do not know. However, in New York, they have had food carts. There's Finnegan's, there is the Auntie Anne's pretzel stand. Previous years there was Louie's, but now that's being used for scare actor dining. So I'm not sure if the Louie's pickup counter will be open, but I feel like New York has a little more space to spread out and a few more food and drink options. I say that because I just want you to be prepared for staying in an area for 45 to 60 minutes without necessarily drinks readily available to you. So you might want to enter Stay and Scream with a beverage and be ready to be standing outside in possible heat for about an hour waiting to enter the park. So around 5:45 or 6 p.m. you'll be released to a specific house to start your Halloween Horror Nights night. Now, I say a specific house because not every single house opens exactly when Stay and Scream releases, because technically you're in the park early. So in theory, the park opens at 6:30, which means most of the houses open at 6:30. However, for Stay and Scream, there is at least 1 house per area that opens early and you'll be directed to that house. As of filming this, we have not had a full reveal yet, so I can't tell you what those houses are going to be, but in a future video, I will let you know exactly what house will be the starting house for each Stay and Scream, so you can pick which Stay and Scream you'd rather do. You can also, if you have multiple nights, switch Stay and Screams and get to do both sides of the park. It's a good strategy. So once you are released, once you go to that first house, hit that first house, and then when you are out of that first house experience, go to whatever house is opening next in your area. This is not the time for grabbing a drink, doing a bathroom break, break, getting food. This is when you hit as many houses as you can before the crowds arrive. You might only have a 15-minute head start before everyone else starts entering the park. My best advice is hit as many houses as you can before they jump up. At this rate, they jump up pretty fast. So you might only get 1 or 2 houses in before you're starting to see 30-minute waits, but I can guarantee a 30-minute wait is going to be a lot better than the 120-minute wait that is going to be later in the night. If you're doing an early arrival but you don't have access to Stay and Scream, then I highly recommend getting to those front gates and waiting outside the front gates by at least 5:30. Otherwise, if you show up at the gates at 6:31, the gates are probably already open because they open earlier than they say they do. And 2, there's going to be a mass of people already ahead of you because they got there at 5:30. Now, I typically say that if you're in that front crowd walking in, that I would head to the back of the park and hit those houses. But these days, Stay and Scream is so popular in both locations, I don't know that it makes that much of a difference. It still might be a better idea to head to those parade building houses first, because most people will head straight to those soundstage houses. It might just be a free-for-all either direction you go. If you're like me and you're a night owl and you'd rather stay late than get there early, then by all means, arrive to the park a little later and stay until the bitter end. Most nights these days close at 2 a.m. We don't have the official calendar yet, but I foresee there being mostly 2 a.m. closings, which means you gotta be a night owl. You gotta be prepared for staying to the very end. Typically, the peak time for Halloween Horror Nights is between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. For those 3 hours, the houses are going to be at their max wait times. Everything's going to be busy. Your restaurants, your scare zones, the streets, the stores, the bathrooms, everything's going to be insanely busy during that time. That's when everyone who's coming that night has already arrived. You're in the thick of it. But around 11 o'clock, some of those people that started showing up at the very beginning of the night, they're hot, they're tired, they've been on their feet for too long, they stood in the suns of Stay and Scream and baked, they're ready to go home. Or they're locals and they have work the next day. That 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. window, it gets better. I'm not saying that 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. is great, but it's definitely better than the 8 to 11. That 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. is your next best bet aside from Stay and Scream of seeing low wait times. Last year, there were some nights where some of those front houses were still 30 to 45 minute waits, even at the end of the night. So I cannot promise that waiting to the end is going to be as successful of a strategy as previous years. It's definitely better than the 8 to 11 p.m. 2 to 3 hour waits for houses. 30 minutes is definitely an improvement from that. The streets do start to calm down. However, a lot of food vendors close earlier. So just make sure you've already had food and drink before you hit that time period. It's a long night, but it can be worth it. Number 3, prioritize your goals. So back in the day, I used to say that you could absolutely see everything at Halloween Horror Nights in one night if you planned appropriately. And if you had Express, then psh, don't worry about it. You can absolutely do everything. These days, not so simple anymore. I would venture to say that with 10 houses, 5 to 6 scare zones, 2 shows, and a ton of different food booths, that it is impossible to see everything at Halloween Horror Nights in one night. If you have Express, possibly. But even then, I think you would be really rushing to see everything in one night. With that said, if you're only doing a single night of Horror Nights, or even maybe just 2 nights of Horror Nights, you need to prioritize what you want to see. If you have Express and you have more than one night, I wouldn't worry too much. You're going to get to see everything. But if you don't have Express, you need to review the map and really decide what is most important to you. Which houses are on your must-see list? Do you want to have time in scare zones? Do you want to have a food tour? Do you want to be able to see both shows? You definitely need to strategize. If pizza fries are your top priority, make sure you leave time for it. If you love camping in scare zones and watching people get scared like I do, then you might have to sacrifice a couple houses to make it happen. If you want to see both shows, then make sure you leave lots of time, because the shows do eat a chunk of your night. I can tell you that last year I attended Halloween Horror Nights 17 different nights using my Ultimate Pass with Express, and I still only saw Marathon of Mayhem once or twice, and I never saw the Nightmare Fuel show because that's just not in my priority. My priority is seeing the houses as many times as I can and spending time in scare zones watching the scare actors work and scare people. So for me, Nightmare Fuel wasn't on my list, but it's all up to you and what your group likes to see, how much energy they have per night, how much horror they can handle in one night. I highly recommend checking out the map once they finally release it and making your plan. Number 4, I say this every single time I make one of these videos, but it is prepare for the elements. If you're new to Halloween Horror Nights, or if you're not from Florida, you might think, I'm coming to a Halloween event. It's September and it's October. It is fall. I am coming for beautiful weather, feeling the fall spirit. But let me tell you something. season. Florida does not pay attention to seasons, and in September and most of October, it is still very, very hot. It is humid, it is muggy, and even though this event takes place mostly at night, you're only escaping the sun. You're not escaping the heat, humidity, or possible Florida downpours. So I always tell people, prepare for Florida's elements. Part of that is staying hydrated. I already mentioned having drinks for Stay and Scream, but if you're waiting at that front gate, make sure you have a beverage. Make sure you are drinking throughout the night, and I don't just mean alcohol. Make sure you are drinking some water mixed in there if you are partaking in the party atmosphere. Make sure you are drinking water, because it is Florida, it is humid, you're going to be sweating a lot, and that means you need to take back in that water as well. So you are allowed to bring in your own refillable cup, water bottle, but they have to be empty when you come into the park, when you go through security. Because this is an event that is so party, alcohol driven, they are very careful about people smuggling in their own alcohol. Normally, when you go through the park, you can bring in your own water, but during Halloween Horror Nights hours, if you have a water bottle, they're going to make you dump it at security because you are not allowed to bring in any sort of liquids. So if you come in with an empty one of these, you'll be fine. You can refill these once you get in the park. You're just gonna have to show that it is empty, that there is no liquid in there. If you don't bring your own water or refillable cup, know that all the Universal restaurants will give you a cup of ice water for free if you ask for it. They are about this big. They're tiny, but trust me, going through Horror Nights, there's nothing like a little cup of ice water to get you through. Don't hesitate to ask. They will give it to you. And on busy nights, sometimes they have a tray of them just sitting there waiting for you to take them because they know we're all sweating and dying out there. As I already hinted, you also need to be conscious of rain. It is still the rainy season, especially in September, and Orlando loves an 8 or 9 p.m. downpour. Make sure to check the weather forecast on the night that you're planning to attend. I highly recommend bringing your own poncho. In previous videos, I've recommended bringing an umbrella. After seeing the crowds the last few years, I would not recommend bringing an umbrella because you're around people so much, and it's going to be very tough to dodge through crowds, carry an umbrella, and not, you know, poke someone in the face. There's just something about those torrential downpours where a poncho just works so much better than an umbrella. As far as the event, if it does start raining, the houses will still continue as normal because they are all indoors. However, the scare zones will be cleared of actors for safety reasons. One, if it's raining, there might be lightning, and two, it's wet out there. The scare actors are usually wearing masks, and it's just dangerous for them to be going around in a mask with it being so wet. So they'll wait for the rain to stop, and then once it's at a reasonable level, they'll bring the actors back out. For the September months, definitely prepare for very hot, humid weather. I highly recommend wearing clothes that are going to be breathable, comfortable throughout the entire night. I know a lot of people see Halloween Horror Nights as the peak of fashion. That is not where I tend to go. I tend to go for comfort because it is hot and sweaty, and I try to find as many fall-colored tank tops as I can. But just know that somehow in Florida, it actually sometimes feels hotter at midnight than it does at 8 p.m. Have that in your mind. One way that I combat the heat, aside from just taking AC breaks, I have a little portable fan, a little battery operated fan that I bring with me in my purse. Gives me some air circulation, makes me feel a little less crowded around people. It has been a lifesaver. Final element that you need to prepare for is walking. You are going to walk more than you probably ever imagined at this event. It's not a regular theme park day because to access these areas where the houses are, you are going backstage. Once you get backstage, they have to create queue lines for you. So I just want to warn you that on an average night at Halloween Horror Nights, I walk anywhere from 6 to 10 miles, and that is with Express. And Express does give you a little bit of a shortcut most of the time because you're skipping a lot of those switchback queues. You're kind of going a more direct path into the house because not only are you walking to get to the entrance of the house, you're walking through the house, and then once you're done with the house, you have to walk back to get into the park. So it is a lot of walking. Unless you have iron feet that can handle anything, then I highly recommend very supportive, comfortable shoes. I wear my best running shoes for this event, and I burn through them in the month. My bestie Brittany can wear whatever shoes she wants. She wears cute little booties every single year, and she can do it, and her feet don't hurt her. But if you are a normal person who can feel their feet, I highly recommend very supportive, comfortable shoes. Along with that, if you are there for multiple nights in a row, I highly recommend rest resting during the day. You're there for vacation. It's very tempting to spend a whole day at Universal and then come do a whole day at Halloween Horror Nights, but that is a lot. That could be 15 miles in a day. So on our vacations, when we're there for our long stay, we spend the entire day leading up to Halloween Horror Nights at the resort. If you're there for your vacation, I would recommend building in some rest time and not going too crazy during the day. So my final tip for Halloween Horror Nights 31, number 5, mentally prepare for the crowds and waiting. So you may have noticed a common thread throughout my tips, and that is the crowds at Halloween Horror Nights are huge. It's crazy. Prepare yourself. That is different from my previous videos because the crowd levels have just gone so much higher in recent years. And I don't want to come off as negative or that I'm trying to scare you away from attending. I just want you to know the reality of the situation, and that is everything in the park is going to be most likely the busiest you've ever seen it. And that is the case pretty much any night you go these days. There are no off nights. It's just busy and insanely busy. There's really not much in between. Personally, I think if you're mentally prepared for going into that situation, it's easier than thinking you're gonna go have a nice quiet night, have no lines, and get there and be shocked by the amount of people around you. I mentioned this earlier, but every single area of the park is going to be busy and crowded. Your house lines, the streets walking to and from, the stores, the restaurants, the bathrooms. You're probably going to be waiting in line everywhere you go, especially if you're a girl. We all know how that goes. It's just gonna be lines all night long. I'm telling you this so that you can bring your patience, bring some activities to keep yourself busy when you're in those lines, and go in with that knowledge so that you're not surprised by it. If you're there with a group of friends, I highly recommend thinking of some party type games to play in line. I know Heads Up is still very popular. It's been a staple at Halloween Horror Nights for probably a decade now, and very popular to see people playing it with their friends in line. One tip to help you avoid the crowds as much as possible would be to download the Universal app. On that app, you will be able to find the Halloween Horror Nights wait times for the houses and the rides. They're not always 100% accurate, but it's a whole lot easier to look at your phone, see what house has the lowest wait time, and walk there rather than having to walk around the park 5 times to see all the wait times. And make sure you bring an extra phone brick or something to keep your phone charged because you'll be using it a lot. So my last Debbie Downer moment for the crowds, I would say this: be prepared for many other people there to not be dealing with all of those elements well. It's hot, people are waiting for things, they're getting upset about waiting for things, they're getting upset about having to wait for drinks. It starts to build in people. Overall, the crowds are usually pretty good. Overall, there's a lot of people enjoying the event. You can meet friends in line, everyone's kind of waiting together, and in general, it's a pretty good vibe. But every once in a while, you're gonna be around people who are not having a good time, who are upset, who are fighting with each other, who are getting angry at each other. There is a culture of alcohol at this event, and there are a lot of teenagers at this event lately, and that is a whole other crowd and a whole other vibe that can add into it. So if you're someone like me who's an introvert, an empath who gets affected a lot by moods of people around you, you might want a quiet space to retreat to every once in a while, and I highly recommend finding a spot and taking a break if you're feeling overwhelmed by all of that energy happening around you. Last year, every once in a while, I retreated into Diagon Alley because it is open, but most people don't go in there. They're busy with Halloween Horror Nights, and it was a nice little quiet retreat for me at moments when the crowds were affecting me a little more than I wanted it to. I just want to put it out there that Halloween Horror Nights is not, Mickey's Not So Scary, and there is a different feel to it, and I just want you to be aware before you go in. So my final tip, a bonus tip, is to leave time to check out the tribute store. That is one of the best aspects of the event that's been added in recent years, and it is so fun to see all the theming they put into it. So do not miss a trip into the tribute store, whatever the theme ends up being this year. That's your bonus tip. Okay guys, well that was my top 5 tips for attending Halloween Horror Nights 31. I hope they're helpful. So if I didn't answer any of the questions you have about the event, make sure to leave them down below and I will answer them in a video very soon. So hopefully we're getting our full announcement next week, and if so, I'll be back to talk about it. But until then, stay safe and stay spoopy. Bye.